Ahoy, hoy, friends, and welcome to a Salon Supplemental. We are coming to you from the present, depending on when you're watching this. It is Monday, January 13th, and we were planning to just drop an interview that we did with Laurie Ulster of Trek Movie. She is a podcaster, an author, writer, TV producer, and just all around wonderful, wonderful human being. In that interview, we were hoping to plug and promote and just generally discuss Trek Talks 4, the fourth Trek Talks event in support of the Hollywood Food Coalition. As you can imagine, it being, again, January 13th, 2025. The wildfires that are still raging in several places in the LA area have postponed that event and countless other things, in addition to, just general devastation, etc. I was luckily, as you can see, able to get back into my apartment. We are hoping that with the winds coming back tonight, that it won't be too bad. Hopefully won't kick up any other fires. But so keep LA in your hearts and minds, and we will put this in the description. But if you can give to organizations that are helping those that have been impacted, it would be greatly appreciated. $1, $1 million, whatever you can afford to give. We will put links in the show notes as well. We're recommending the Hollywood Food Coalition, which is the organization that Trek Talks was going to be supporting in their telethon that was going to be this Saturday. We also encourage folks to give to the World Central Kitchen, the American Red Cross, and the California Firefighters Foundation. Trevor, anything that you wanted to add on that note?
Just that it seems like Trek Talks 4 will most likely be rescheduled sometime in the spring. Could be before that, but hopefully very soon. So keep an eye out, follow them on all of the things so that you can be notified when they are rescheduled. And so, yes, our conversation is delightful and wonderful, as Laurie is. And we were super excited to have the conversation. We'll pause the conversation when it gets to the Trek Talks part so that we're not pitching something for you that has been postponed. And you'll see our fabulous faces once again. Wonderful conversation with Laurie coming up, and we'll keep you posted on the Trek Talks reschedule when that happens.
Yes. And in the meantime, here again are those organizations that you can support for those impacted by the wildfires. Again, the Hollywood Food Coalition, the American Red Cross. There's also the LA Mutual Aid Network, again, the World Central Kitchen, and the California Fire Foundation. I created all of these tiny URLs so that they're a little easy to remember. We'll put links in the description of this video. In fact, I think they're already there, but we'll double check and make sure. Again, any amount that you can give would be certainly appreciated. And with that, how about we go back in time and see our interview with Laurie Ulster? Just don't tell DTI. All right, give us 5 seconds.
Maybe someone already told DTI.
Ahoy, hoy, friends, and welcome to a Salon Supplemental. I am coming to you live from my away team mission in Phoenix. I've got my co-host Trevor in Palm Springs. How are you? How's California? I miss it dearly. I'll be back this evening.
California's lovely. It misses you. And I'm just super excited for our guest today.
Yes, we are so excited. This is our second interview ever, and we have the best guest for that coveted spot. We are going to beam her aboard momentarily. Quintessential YouTube podcast things. Like and subscribe, please. Insert usual begging. Smash that subscribe button. We appreciate seeing you on Blue Sky, on the trash site formerly known as Twitter, and of course here on YouTube. Thank you very much for having us. Enough shenanigans. Let's get to our mission. Let's beam Laurie aboard.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Hello, Laurie. Welcome to the Salon. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
So excited you're here. We were talking in the pre-show. I love an eclectic history. You've done so many things. You've been in TV production. You're an author. You're a podcaster, and one of my favorite Star Trek podcasts you co-host with Anthony over at Trek Movies. So we're excited to get into it. But you know, as always, before we can truly get into anything, we simply must set an intention.
Indeed, we must. Oh, look at you. You're prepared. I love it. I love every bit of it. So, Laurie, to set an intention today, I thought it would be fun if we asked just one simple question, which is, what is your Trek headcanon? So unique to you, perhaps. Maybe you borrowed it from someone else. But something that we've never seen on camera, we've never had confirmed, but you just know that it's true.
All right. Well, are you familiar with the Voyager episode Resolutions?
Yes.
Where Chakotay and Janeway are on a planet and they think they might have to stay there forever. And they
yes,
meet a monkey and he builds her a tub. All the important
Like you do.
things. So I think that after that, they got back to the ship. And that night, she showed up at his cabin and she said, we're going to do this one time. Get it out of our systems, and then all the flirty stuff can continue, but we will be done.
That is so amazing, because we have talked about that moment on the Salon, because we are very much not JC shippers.
Same. I'm not.
The first woman captain that like they fucked with her bridge, so she didn't get the center seat. I've said before, I liked the flirtatiousness at first season. They're getting to know each other. Like, this is a very different situation, but then they have that moment from that episode, and then from then on. And I like that you're saying that they bang it out at least once. That's because get it out of your system. Because
there's throughout the rest of the series, there's all this touching and flirting, and it's like it's not so torturous if they've done it and had the conversation. For him, obviously, it's torturous for him. She's fine. She's like, whatever.
Also, and forgive me for using your name as a brand, but that's a great Laurie answer, because something that Stan and I have talked about in the past, just as fans of your podcast and listening to you guys talk, you have the unique ability to take something you disagree with, but like make it diplomatically acceptable and digestible in Trek.
At least on the podcast.
It's true. We haven't had enough STLV cocktails for me to know the real truth about all those things.
Yes. Yes, we do have a set of recording questions, and then the gossip will be after we turn off the record button. Don't worry. All kinds of gossip. But before we get into the gossip, I'm sure you've shared this before on the podcast and in interviews, but can you share for our ever-growing audience the first contact that you had with Star Trek? How'd you meet the franchise and get into it?
I was a kid and my mom was watching it. And, back in the day when there was one TV that everybody watched instead of everybody had their own device that they're walking around with, I was like, this is the coolest show. And I just got hooked. And then I got obsessed. And then I got made fun of. And then I hid my love for many years. And then it came out. Now I'm flying my nerd flag proudly. But that took a while.
I love it.
I just wanted to ask a quick question. Just because your answer kind of sparked something. So the Salon is comprised of several senior staff members. So there's about 8 or 9 of us. And every one of us seem to have some sort of parental connection to Star Trek, like a parent watched it with us, or a parent let us stay up late to watch it. There's always some sort of weird parental thread. So I'm kind of curious because though there are many of us and we all have a parental thread, none of us are parents. So I kind of want to know, as a parent, has Star Trek ever influenced your parenting, and how, if you don't mind sharing? You don't have to get too personal, obviously, but whatever you're comfortable sharing.
I always get too personal. I'm trying to think if it's influenced my parenting. Like, only in that, I probably put them in a Star Trek outfit every once in a while, which they didn't like, but they were babies, so what could they do? I don't know if it's influenced my parenting specifically. It's influenced so many things. And I keep trying to get my kids to watch, and I have my good moments and my bad with that. But like Judge Judy has influenced my parenting, but I don't know if Star Trek has.
Nice.
That's fair.
Well, and you're the only Trek fan in your immediate family, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard on the podcast they'll watch some things with you, they'll catch it with you, but nobody's sitting down to watch it with you consistently, right?
Correct. It's been a battle. I mean, my son would come with me to certain things. Like, I'd be like, oh, the Intrepid is doing a Star Trek. Oh, when he was little, he would come, and they each have a certain thing that they'll watch. And then my husband every once in a while reveals that he'll say some Star Trek detail, and I'm like, you remembered that.
Yes. My family is very similar. They'll watch a few things with me, but only with me. Otherwise, they're just not interested.
And there's a lot of eye rolling at my house.
I have those moments as well. My husband is not a huge fan. I did get him. He watched the first couple seasons of Discovery with me, but like every once in a while, he'll make a comment that I'm like, that is the Trekkiest thing you've ever said. And he's like, it's been 9 million years. Some of it's going to rub off. Like, I'm going to know some things. And he's been to STLV with me a couple times too. So
see, that's pretty cool.
It is. I mean,
he's a great presence at STLV. He's a very calming presence because he's a fan, but he's not a fan like we are, and he's a good influence on obviously his husband, but also people around him. He's a very calming presence in the chaos of a convention setting.
You need that at STLV.
He's also the only reason that Stan and I had the most amazing conversation with Penna Visitor, because we saw her in a bar, and he's like, I looked at him, I was like, I can't. He's like, if you don't, you're going to regret it. Just go. And I bolted, and she was lovely.
And she's extraordinary. Yeah.
Yes. I've been diving into her book. Incredible. My favorite character, I think one of the best actors in the franchise. And just a lovely human being, just an incredible.
Her book is extraordinary. Like, I was reading it and my brain was firing up with like 1,000 ideas and things from my past and things I'd seen friends go through. And it was a big book for me, for sure.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I have a long list of questions I want to ask her, and I'm going to bring it with me next year for her to sign it, because I loved your interview, and I love that you all didn't condense it into one. Like, it was a good long conversation, which was very warranted for the subject matter, the book in general, her, and you're such a great interviewer. So it was so fun.
Thank you. I mean, the thing with Nana is that I sort of can forget it's an interview and we just started talking. And so then I had to cut out a lot of it. Like, there's stuff I said that was personal to my situation that I'm not going to share with everybody. And then, and just things that I lost the thread of the interview but she's so extraordinary. And I feel like there was so much. So it was just trying to divide it up and make it easier for people to read and digest. Like, I don't know if we'll release the audio or not, because I'd need to cut so much out.
Well, it's a similar problem she was having with what to put in the book.
Yeah.
There's just so much that could be included, but there's a story that you want to tell and make sure that it's digestible.
Right.
I'm terrible at segues, but there's a segue in there about your history with TV production and the Trek connection. I'm very curious how you got into that realm and what led you to working on After Trek, which was a super fun, for those who don't know, the After Trek show, the first season of Star Trek Discovery. What I don't want to say what became, because they were very different, separate things. But now there's Will Wheaton's after show, but this was the original with Matt Mira, and you were the executive producer. Is that correct?
As supervising producer.
Supervisor producer. So tell us about that experience.
So I had been out of TV for quite some time. And my best friend was working at Embassy Row and called me and said, they're doing a Star Trek after show. I already told them about you. You have to talk to them. And I was, of course, like, I have to. And then I had been out of TV at that point for maybe 15 years, like where I'd switched into digital. And so I went in to meet Jeremy Hutchins, who has since died, unfortunately. And he was just an extraordinary, creative, wonderful human being. And he was in charge of the show. And we were talking. And every time I would say an idea, he would be like, "Stop reading my mind." Like he would yell at me. And we were just totally like coming up with a million ideas and talking about it. And they offered me the job. I left a staff job to do it, even though it was contract, because how could you not? And it was an extraordinary experience, because first of all, he was so great about every cockamamie, bizarre idea that I had in my head. He was super into. And I said to him, I haven't been in TV for a while. And so you might need to sometimes, remind me of something. And he said, the only difference is nobody hands anybody a tape anymore. Everything else is the same. And I was like, fair. So, but I just remember the very first day of work, I was so excited. And the first task that we had as we all met each other for the first time, this amazing group of people, was to watch the Discovery pilot.
Ooh.
And I was like, this is the best first day of work ever.
Yeah. What a reintroduction for the franchise.
Right. And like, also, I remember Jeremy had bought us all these little captain's log notebooks, and he'd put them around the table at every season.
Trevor did that.
He's a great guy. And we sat and watched it together. And it was just like, it was the first new Star Trek show since Enterprise.
And how far in advance were you watching it before it premiered?
Like a month or two, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe a month.
Enough to drive you nuts that you couldn't say anything.
Well, no, because we had each other, right? So we had this whole group of people, which is great, because I was reading all the scripts before we even saw the episodes as the show went on. They'd send the scripts first, and I'd be reading through, and then I'd be like, okay, who's read this episode? Like, you go nuts. Like, remember that first season was full of crazy twists and turns and changes and all kinds of things.
Why is this guy such an asshole captain? Oh.
Yeah. And I just was like, somebody needs to read this, and all that stuff. So it was real. And every week I got to email the writer of the episode and ask all these, why did you decide this? And why, and get these. I saved every email. I have fantastic, detailed, thoughtful answers from every writer, prop designer, every person who ever replied was incredibly generous with their time and the details.
Yeah. And it's such a labor of love. Like, obviously we love the franchise. We're in it, like on the sidelines, and you've been in it with these people. I remember in that first season, the interview with Jordan Nardino, the writer of Vaulting Ambition, just such a beautiful, fun episode that had to do so many things, including the fight back on the this is a bury your gaze moment. No, it's not. To be behind the scenes for all that and be able to talk with folks behind the scenes of it as it's coming out. It must have just been such a fun experience.
It was great. Like, we insisted we'd like a writer for every episode, please, which they honestly hadn't thought of or wanted. So, and they said, oh, we'll give you a liaison. It's Ted Sullivan, who was, people remember from first season, he was very active on social, telling people what was going on. He was the most phenomenal person, again, unbelievably generous, and a long-time Star Trek fan. So we could talk about, in the emails, we'd sometimes talk about I'd be like, well, should they say that? Because, we'd have these great conversations. And as the actors came on, they were all, again, the same. Everyone knows this about the Discovery cast, that they're just the nicest, most real when you're having a conversation with them, they're just a person and it's great and they're lovely. So it was, I mean, every day I was so excited to come to work. The best part was that when it was going to be me new back in TV after a long time. And then the director they hired was someone from my days at MTV. So it was someone I'd worked with a ton at MTV and loved him. And so as soon as he showed up, I was like, it's Joe. And then, an old friend and this, as I'm nervous, like, am I too old? Am I too rusty? Am I too this? So, and then for our studio, which was a very, very tiny studio, he said, we're very low budget. And so he said, I don't have a stage manager. I know you're supervising stuff, but can you be my stage manager? Now, my dream that I love is counting people in. I have a thing for counting people in 4, 3, 2, and I just love it. And I got to do it 1,000 times, and I got to yell like quiet on the set. I was like really fun. I mean, I didn't have to do a real stage manager's job, which is a lot more complicated when you have a larger studio and more cameras and more things. So I don't want to take credit for I could never be I don't have the training to be a real stage manager, but it was great. And I just loved being the loud, I'm not usually the loudest person. So it's fun to be like, okay, here we go in 4 and yelling things out. And it's great.
I love that set too. There's
that table.
Yes, if I may be so bold to Will Wheaton and the team, the downgrade, the one downgrade I would say in the after show, in addition to not having Laurie, of course, is the set. The ready room is great, but I love that table. And if I'm ever rich, I'm not going to brag about it, but there will be signs, including a Delta table randomly in my house.
That was a beautiful table, and I used to go in during the week because we only filmed once a week. So I would just take a moment every once in a while and I'd just get out of my desk and I'd walk over to the studio and I'd take the communicator and the phaser. I have all these pictures, selfies I took with just me by myself farting around, doing all this stuff with the equipment. And it was the set was great. It was really fun. And we would, we would decorate, so we had the tribbles everywhere, if you remember, which I have to say, that was my shining moment. Of what if one week there are 2 tribbles and then the next week that was, and Joe was like, yes, I got it. But so at Halloween, we decorated the tribbles and we put them in, we had Eliza on our team was very creative and craftsy. So she would put little costumes on the tribbles and stuff like that. It was great. She made them. She made all the tribbles. Tribbles are expensive, so she just bought a whole bunch of fabric and taught us all how to make them. And I still have them.
Oh, that's perfect.
I kept my tribble that I made. I made
replicating too much.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks so cool.
Yeah.
And was working on After Trek how you got connected with Trek Movie?
No, I think Trek Movie helped me get After Trek. So my little origin story of Trek Movie is that I was working at the time at Fuse, the music network, on the digital side, and my coworkers were fabulous, but my job was so not for me, and I was bored. And a friend of mine got a job on a Star Trek game, and a friend of mine got a job on Discovery, although he didn't end up staying. But I was thinking and I'm just sitting here, I was very happy for them, but I was just feeling what am I doing with my life? And so I was always on the Trek Movie site, always using it for research. So I emailed them and I was like, do you guys ever hire writers? And the answer was, well, we don't have any money, but we have swag, invitations, interview opportunities, if that's. And so I started with them, and it was out of this feeling of desperation. I got to get involved. I got to do something. And so because I started working with them, and then so many opportunities and amazing things and great, dear friends now, nearest and dearest. And so when I applied for the After Trek job, I've been reporting on Star Trek this whole time. So I am up to date on everything, on who the people are and what's going on. I've been following Discovery from the moment that they announced it. I had those chops. So that was definitely helpful.
And that's this gives me my moment to gush about Trek movie and just kind of explain a couple things briefly, which is that really you guys were a little bit of the inspiration for the Salon in a roundabout sort of way, because it sparked something in me. During the pandemic, I was, obviously I'm an extroverted extrovert. I need people. And suddenly it's just me and my husband staring at each other for days on end, which he's not bad to stare at, but still there came a point where I was like, I need more like input. And so that actually is when I started listening to you guys and sort of discovered you for myself, and realized I needed to interact more with Star Trek fans, because from a podcast, it was sort of just a one-way situation where I was feeding, but I couldn't feed back. So it led to me getting involved in Twitter Spaces with, shout out to Starfleet Sohail, who had a Twitter space regularly talking about new Star Trek shows as they came out, which led to Stan and I saying, we would love to keep this conversation going, but just keep it like informal, just Star Trek friends talking and drinking and being silly and doing all the things we would do if we were all in the same city. And here we all are. So thank you for that. And thank you guys for just being as wonderful as you are and as wonderful as you've been to listen to for all these years, because I've been listening for a long time.
That's so nice to hear. And I'm hearing an echo of my voice and my headset all of a sudden. But the group of people, like for me also, I never had Star Trek friends in my physical circle. So when I go to Vegas and suddenly I'm hanging out with my Trek movie crew, and they're the greatest people, and we're all playing Star Trek Infinite Questions, which is a drinking fun event night that we always have. And everyone gets every reference, and and you can make fun of things, and everybody knows that you love it, and that's fine, and have fun arguments. And it's like, I never had that in my life. I mean, when my siblings and I, we all watched original series, and so those references they got, but then I got annoyingly obsessive about it, so they didn't want to watch it. They're like, enough. So, but I know what you mean. And the Trek movie people, like they all come from such interesting backgrounds, and they all do such interesting things, and they've become such great friends, and they've inspired me too, like each individual person on that team.
I want to go that far about the Salon. No, I love my Salon crew. It's so wonderful how the Trek community just brings us together in different ways. And for us, it ended up being this eclectic group of gays and some allies with Joanne and Krista. And we have this massive panel. Sometimes it's chaotic, but we all love Star Trek. Like you were saying, it's everybody getting the references that nobody else in our lives gets.
Right.
It's just so wonderful. And I've been chomping at the bit to ask you about All Access. I listen every week. I love y'all's podcast. I wish it came out on Thursday so that I could, because I find myself checking my opinion about things. I'm like, I swear to God, I'm not blowing smoke, but every once in a while when I have a thought of like, I don't understand this, or I didn't get this, I listen to your podcast, and like you and I might have the same criticism, I find. And I'm like, what was this about? And then I don't feel insane because I'm listening to you.
I always say that's why I watch John Oliver, so I don't feel insane.
Like we gush over the same things. And I'm very curious, we're just a fun little podcast that does whatever. You all are All Access. You are trekmovie.com. You do get screeners. You do get interviews. I'm very curious how you all go about doing your podcast and staying true to who the two of you are as co-hosts, and being honest in your conversation about Trek without going too negative. And if there's ever a worry that would impact access to screeners and that kind of thing, like I just wonder about that whole, but does that even come into the calculus? Because it's not just like, we're just friends talking about Star Trek. You all have a Star Trek site that is a news source for people. Can I put any more pressure on you?
Well, first of all, thank you. Like, that's just really nice to hear. When you're doing we don't do a live show, so we don't have anybody commenting. We get no feedback. we're all, people will comment on what we talk about. But and I'm a feedback glutton. So I can never get enough, especially positive, obviously. But, so thank you. But yes, I'll be honest, we do get stuff, right? And so we get screeners, we get interview opportunities, but I don't ever want to be dishonest, and Tony doesn't either. And I think both of us have a natural tendency, separate from the site, that if it's Star Trek, we're going to try to like it.
Yeah.
Like, I never go into anything going, I'm going to hate this. I think, okay, let's try to be open. But like a great example is the Section 31 movie that's coming up. Not my genre, not my choice of what I find interesting anyway. And I'm nervous about it. And so I say that on the podcast. Like, I will say, here's what I'm nervous about. I think if I don't think I would say I really hate something. One, because of that, but also because of I just think there's too much. I don't want to shit on something. I hope it's okay to say shit on something.
Oh, please.
Oh, good.
Please do.
Great.
I don't want to swearing, actually.
I don't want to shit on something that somebody else likes. I can say my opinion of it, but I don't want to say that's shitty. But I can say I didn't like the blah, blah, blah. And I think that's what the difference is. And so I can be honest. And if we get someone from Strange New Worlds, for example, I'll be thrilled to talk to anyone from Strange New Worlds. I can admire a lot of what they're doing, even as it drives me crazy, and
I know you love the Gorn.
Yeah, the Gorn. Well, my headcanon for all of that is it's an alternate universe. Boom, done. Good.
You and Ken would get along. Trevor has some good headcanon for that I think works for me too, with the Gorn take on whatever they gestate in. And so it's an allegory of human nature, which is sad.
Yeah.
But it works for me. It
doesn't reconcile canon, but but it does reconcile the behavioral differences between and works to, I think I'm probably giving them too much credit, but it works to serve as that sort of old Star Trek way of giving a message back of if they gestate in humans and then they come out of humans hostile, then perhaps it's not Gorn hostility that we're dealing with, it's our own.
Right, but then that doesn't explain why Kirk didn't know who they were. So, it's again, so if I go, it's like the Kelvin, it's just another timeline, then I can take it in and then I don't bring in this burden of it. But I think there are definitely times that we would talk about how we were going to criticize something, like the very short treks.
Yeah.
I think we were pretty honest about those. I'm never going to pretend to like something that I don't like.
Right. Ever.
But I will look at the effort it went into making it. Like that new thing with Shatner and the Otoy unification thing. I can admire the tremendous artistry and devotion that went into it and still say it came out, I was empty, did nothing for me.
Yeah, we are as one on a lot of these things. I'm kind of the flip about Section 31. We had a similar conversation about very short treks. I am very excited when Star Trek tries to do something different.
Yeah.
And so I love that Discovery is a different kind of Star Trek show. And very short treks. I was like, okay, this will be interesting. I like the attempt. They save from Aaron's. They were not from me. Well, the first one was with Pete Holmes, like up to the woman saying, "Excuse me," like after the first minute, I'm like, okay, they're beating this joke to death. Like, we are as one.
Yeah. But there's a way to talk about things, as I'm sure you're discovering, that isn't because someone in your group might love it. And so it's not my goal to make someone stop loving something.
Yeah. Ken on the podcast, he's our tosser, who we call the TOS super fan. I have a lot of respect for the original series and I love certain episodes, but it's just not my Trek. I grew up on Next Gen. My earliest memories are watching Next Generation, begging my dad to let us watch the Deep Space Nine premiere. And,
Aw.
you know, now that I'm older, I realize he didn't want us watching the second half because he saw what a good father looks like and didn't want us getting ideas. Uh, that's a long history. I don't need to make this a therapy session. Everything's fine. But yes, I grew up on the Berman era, which is wild because we talk about it a lot. You know, this week we were talking about how excited we were all to see T'Pol, even though it wasn't our T'Pol, but she wasn't just the sex box to check off. And I love that we're getting that kind of thing in Trek now. And I'm so bummed they canceled Lower Decks.
I know. I watched the finale because we have it. I will only say this: you're just gonna love it. That's it. That's all I'm telling you.
I'm so excited.
And by the time everyone sees this, we will have probably already gushed about it. So
yes,
I'm excited. But one thing that we haven't gotten an opportunity to gush about yet is a non-Trek related project. So if I can pivot for just 1 second and ask about Gilmore Girls life lessons.
Yay.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about both the inspiration and just the book itself?
So the book is life lessons just taken from the show. So just going through and finding the choices people made that were good or bad or things they did and why they did them. And basically I was hired they had a concept and they hired me to write the book. In fact, they said, "Oh, do you watch Gilmore Girls?" And I said, "I am in the middle of my 8 millionth rewatch." It's just one of those shows that, you know, like Parks and Rec and like things like that you just like to keep going. And so, but once I saw their outline, I started coming up with other ideas. Like the dialogue on the show was such a big deal. So I said every single section should have a line of dialogue from the show. And then the fun part of that is my job as I'm rewatching everything is I'm taking notes on anything that might be useful for the book and any good line of dialogue. So I had all these categories of all these different notes going in all these different documents. And it's a pithy little, like it's just a short, sweet book. The word count was so strict. Like I probably spent more time cutting than I spent writing.
Oh, wow.
You know, or as much time cutting because they were because the layout, if you look at it, it's beautiful. They did a beautiful job.
And have you thought about, do you want to write in the Star Trek space in like a novel or one of the autobiography kind of like your voice would be excellent for that.
Well, the thing because I've been a writer my whole life and I love writing about Star Trek and I definitely have aspirations to write nonfiction about Star Trek, but also the autobiography series has captured my attention because I loved Una's. I haven't read David's yet, but I loved Una's 2 books, and then which was Spock and Janeway, and then I read Derek Tyler Atticos, which took it to a whole, was also took on the spirit of Cisco, not just like the language was beautiful and it just had this whole feeling the same way I think Una did for Janeway, and so. I want who I want to do, which is crazy. Troy.
Yes.
Because it's not like she's my favorite character because they didn't write her enough. They didn't give you enough of that. But my mom was a therapist and my mom was a larger than life, big personality woman.
Nice.
Who dated a lot also. So it's like I just feel like, and I always feel like Marina, the person, they needed to put more of her into Troy is my long-standing Troy theory, is that had they taken more of her the way they did with Jonathan Frakes, they're like, this guy's amazing. Let's take some of his natural charm and put it into Riker. And then Riker got so much better. So with
and it
Troy,
would fit too with Loxana.
Yes. Yeah, and I think Loxana became way more fun when she was more Majel, right? And less sort of stereotype, whatever. And then because at first she was kind of annoying, and then all of a sudden you see all this, there was more there. So with Troy, I would have put more Marina into that, and that's how I would. And wouldn't you love to know her upbringing? And
yes.
Yeah, in fact, one of my 4 fun, I think I mentioned this on Blue Sky, my stunt casting wanting Christine Baranski in Star Trek.
Yes. She would be so good.
So good. And I'm
A
writing.
Vulcan.
Yeah, well, I have her as a Betazoid. I have her as Troy's grandmother in my spec script. It's just for fun writing.
Yeah.
I want this whole like backstory, like the daughters of the fifth house. I want to explore the fifth house as like they serve the people, and Alana Troy is her name, is on the Federation Council. Her daughter is a young Loxana, is in training to be an ambassador. Is just we can nerd out for forever on this.
There's so much that you could do with that. I mean, the problem is I don't have to get one of those. You have to have a fiction writing background, and I don't have that background. Like all of those authors had done a lot of stuff already. So, but I can dream, I can fantasize, and I want to do books that I pitch. So that because my name, I have several books, and my name is always on the inside, and I want my name on the outside.
Yes.
Well, speaking of dreams, there's a dream or two question in our lightning round, so I think we should go ahead and progress to it if we don't mind.
It is time for the trans warp round, indeed.
I was going to say that I know you have a video.
If there's one thing about me, engage.
Just dandy. So, Laurie Ulster, what is if you were given the keys, like what is your dream Trek show?
Like an existing one or inventing one?
Nope, you get to invent one. What is it? Like ours is the West Wing. Ours is the West Wing meets Star Trek.
Oh. Now I have to. That's a big question. How can I do lightning round on such a gigantic, monumental question?
Because in typical Salon fashion, Transwarp fell apart. So should this round. No.
Create my own. The thing I'm interested in is civilian life in the future.
Yeah.
I find that intriguing, and then how that works with Starfleet and all of that. But
love it. If you could just change one little thing in Star Trek or in Star Trek history, what would it be?
I was gonna say
just a little
something mean. It was a big thing. Okay.
Just a little tweak. No, go ahead. Say it. If you feel comfortable.
No, that was too big.
All right, we'll save it. We'll save it for when we're not recording.
You're like, she does not know what a lightning round is. This person has no concept.
No, I don't know what a lightning round is. You're fine. The problem is not you, it's me.
Big, like I should have, if I'd had time to think. And I took a gummy, remember? So I'm kind of stupid also. Cheers.
Cheers to that.
Okay. So change one tiny thing?
Yeah. Just one little thing that drives you nuts.
This is mean, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'd recast James Frain.
Oh.
Sorry. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe that's not so tiny. So mean.
But I'm not mad about it.
No, that's not. I'm just, of all of the criticisms I hear, like it's never been him. That's interesting. Ooh, I want to deep dive into that. We'll gossip later. No,
lightning round.
Yeah.
We'll schedule another 45 minutes just for that conversation. And then setting aside asking Kate Mulgrew if she needed to star in a show. Do you have any fun little like embarrassing celebrity moments?
I have such a good one for you. So I was at the Voyager documentary premiere in New York. And so I was told you have a press ticket. So I showed up in a Star Trek t-shirt that said Daystrom Institute on it, ready for my press ticket. And somehow I ended up David Zappone brought me to the green room and said, come on, there's food and you'll hang out and then we'll all go out together. And so I go, okay. And I'm chatting with someone who worked on it, whatever. And then eventually and I'm chatting with Kate's book editor is there. And we have a very nice conversation. And we exchange cards. It's going well. Then Kate is there with her sister, who, if you saw her sister anywhere, you would go up to her and say, are you Kate Mulgrew's sister? Just the same gorgeous face. Terry Farrell, who I've never met and always wanted to. and Ethan Phillips, who I'd been to see Kate's play a few weeks before, and he was there the same day. And so we're sitting, and Robin Curtis Savick. So Robin's very warm. We're sitting, we're talking, whatever. At some point, I realized, like, if I got off the couch, that Terry, Ethan, and Kate could all have it to talk. And so I start to get up, and Terry goes, "Oh, do you?" And I hadn't talked to him. Terry goes, "Do you mind?" I go, "Not at all." And I get up thinking I'm just gonna casually walk around the table, and my foot catches on the table leg, and the whole table comes lurching across the thing, and I almost fall down and then catch myself, and now they're all looking at me, and everybody's looking at me, and I'm like,
Nightmare.
that was me being smooth. And then I like put the table back, and everybody and then Robin Curtis, bless her, is standing there and ends up hanging out with me the rest of the time, and we're trading stories about embarrassing moments that we've had. And she's like, "Let's all take a picture together." And she's like the most wonderful person. And when we go out to our VIP seats, and I sit with Robin, and just like, she was delightful. But yes, I completely humiliated. And Amy Imhoff had just introduced me to Kate like before this whole incident, and was like, "Oh, Laurie's a writer and she's interviewed you," and it's so nice. And then of course and not to mention, I'm the dork in the Star Trek shirt. Like nobody else back there. The whole audience is in Star Trek shirts, but the people back there are dressed very nicely.
Or were you the only one in the green room prepared? That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I guess you could. The thing is, I'd had a badge on too, and as soon as I was walking towards the green room, I just slipped it off and put it in my pocket. But I was like, and I almost wore a shirt that was a giant coffee cup with it's Janeway's coffee order, right? So it says Catherine and then coffee black on it, and I'm glad I didn't wear that. But that would be my most embarrassing moment, probably. So, and then I remember also when we were doing Comic-Con with Jason Isaacs, and the show hadn't come out yet, or was just starting to, had been out for a little bit. And my boss had said, like, come up with ideas. And so we came up with a bunch of ideas. He said, "Okay, can you go tell him the ideas?" So I go to meet him, and suddenly he's like, he's got these jeans and a t-shirt, and he looks fantastic and super handsome in a way that I didn't think he looked like on screen. And then suddenly I'm like an idiot. And then I pitch him the ideas, and he goes, "Well, those are all things Lorca would do. I'm Jason. So how about if I just ask people who their favorite captain is?" And I was like, that is 100 times better than any of the things we had. But I was like, I became so stupid because he was so handsome. Like he was just unbearably handsome.
Yes.
Which leads us so well into our last lightning round question, which is a shag, marry, kill question. So Laurie, shag, marry, kill, Christopher Pike, Cleveland Booker, Gabriel Lorca.
Okay, I'm marrying Cleveland Booker, no matter what. So then I guess I would shag Lorca, which makes it sad that that's what happens to Pike. Wait, is it Anson Mounts Pike?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna maybe I'll marry him and shag Cleveland Booker.
Okay. All right.
And then
so we're killing Lorca.
And then we're killing Lorca because he's a jerk, and he was
for that shitty answer that he gave you.
Oh, we meant Prime Lorca, the nice one. we found him. We found him for this,
and he's been exercising this whole time.
He's at a standing desk,
and he's wearing jeans and a t-shirt. I was like,
push-ups in an escape pod. It's all he's been able to do.
And we're back from the past. The abrupt end you just saw there is where you said, "Well, Laurie, let's talk about Trek Talks," which of course was this wonderful event that was going to be this Saturday. Amazing panels. We actually had a Salon exclusive because things weren't announced yet with some of the panels. But of course, with these horrific fires that are going on in the LA area, Trek Talks has decided to postpone until later in the spring. So we will edit the show notes when we know that date. So it'll be on in the description. But what a lovely, lovely human being Laurie is. Trevor, what'd you think rewatching that conversation?
I think I had almost as well, maybe I had just as much fun watching it as I did having it. I was so excited for that conversation. Laurie and I started just sort of randomly DMing each other a long time ago, and I got a chance to meet her a couple times at STLV, and just one of those people that you meet and you wish you lived closer, because she's just such a cool person and so easy to talk to, and just such a delightful human being. We'll keep saying that over and over because it's true. But yeah, just a wonderful conversation with a wonderful human, and I'm excited for her part in Trek Talks. I'm excited for Trek Talks when it happens. And like we said at the top of this, we'll keep everybody posted, and please follow them on all of the socials so that you're aware. But if you miss it, we'll be sure to repost or whatever every platform calls reing. But we will it when it happens.
Absolutely. And again, there was an abrupt ending there. It was, I am not good at segues, but it was less abrupt in our actual conversation winding down and talking about that event. But again, because of the wildfires, it's been postponed. And again, we want to encourage folks, if you can, $1, $10, anything that you can give to these organizations, including the Hollywood Food Coalition that Trek Talks was going to be supporting and still is, in fact. The American Red Cross, LA Mutual Aid Network, the World Central Kitchen, and the California Fire Foundation. Links are in the description. And again, when Trek Talks is announced, we'll put it up. Again, our thanks to Laurie Ulster for having that conversation with us. It was such a fun time. Can't wait to see you at STLV. And with that, I don't believe we have any tallies or intentions to set, because we are not lighting candles right now. There are enough flames in this part of the world,
just
including the two of us.
There's enough flame between the two of us. Just all of the bonus points to Laurie for being amazing.
Yes. And our thanks to friends in the chat following along with this pre-recorded interview. It was super fun chatting with you all, and you all live long and prosper.
All hands abandon ship. Proceed to the nearest evacuation zone immediately.